Greetings, it's Jinzo here. Today's topic is on handheld gaming, and we will go through their history and take a look at every handheld ever. Let's begin. The first handheld was a game console created by Mattel called Auto Race, released in 1976. It was only capable of playing one game with limited visuals represented by red LED lights. Being the first handheld, its sales exceeded expectations, which motivated Mattel to release a second game called Mattel Football a year later. However, the first handheld by modern standards wasn't released until 1979. It used interchangeable cartridges and an LED screen, the Microvision, by the Milton Bradley Company. 12 games were made for it, including simplistic titles such as Connect 4 and Pinball. The Microvision saw moderate success but was still a niche console of its time. After Microvision, Nintendo's first handheld released the following year. It was a series of electronic games produced from 1980 to 1991 called the Game & Watch. It had a total of 60 games which sold a combined 43 million units worldwide. Each console could only play one game due to its segmented LCD displays which were pre-printed with an overlay. More complicated displays such as the Donkey Kong game released in 1982 required the addition of a D-pad design which was later used in the NES and received a Technology and Engineering Emmy Award. Some well-known Game & Watch titles include Ball, Parachute, Pinball, Manhole, Balloon Fight, and the well-known Mario Bros. The Microvision and Game & Watch were followed by many less successful handheld consoles in the 1980s. These include the Selector Game, Variety, Super Micro, Game Pocket Computer, DigiCass, IM26, and the Pre-Computer 1000. Other consoles released in the same generation tried to incorporate some unique feature to differentiate themselves from competitors. The Bandai LCD Solar Power released in 1982, for example, was the first solar-powered gaming device. Meanwhile, the 3D GameMate in 1983 was the first console to use 3D effects. Another popular design of the early 1980s, debatably not handheld, were the tabletop-style consoles such as the Children Discovery System, the Adventure Vision, as well as the Color Vision and the Pro Screen, all of which were not very successful. Next came the big hit of the handheld consoles. The first entry in the Game Boy series was released in 1989. The original Nintendo Game Boy was an 8-bit console that used interchangeable cartridges unlike the Game & Watch. Its popularity was helped by some of its games such as Tetris and Super Mario Land. Unlike handheld consoles that came before it, the Game Boy received a large number of games, which was its major selling point. There is a total of over 1,000 games that have been released on the system, many of which only saw releases in specific regions of the world. The Game Boy's competition were the Atari Lynx released in 1989, NEC's Turbo Express, and the Sega Game Gear both in 1990. Both the Lynx and the Turbo Express were 16-bit, while the Game Gear was 8-bit. Each had a color LCD screen and received praise for their technological performance. However, their library of games were far inferior to the Game Boy's, and though some of them saw moderate success, none could come close to the Game Boy's popularity. This generation of handhelds in the early 1990s saw other releases such as the GameMate Game Master, the Supervision, the Mega Duck, and the Game Wizard. Unfortunately, none of them had much success. Nintendo's next handheld, or perhaps somewhat portable console, was the Virtual Boy, released in 1995. It was a 32-bit tabletop console and was marketed as the first console capable of displaying stereoscopic 3D graphics through its head-mounted display. The console was a commercial failure. It was criticized for its high price, monochrome display, unimpressive 3D graphics, low-quality games, as well as health concerns. Moving on to the next contender, Sega's Nomad was a handheld version of the Genesis that played the same cartridge and was released in 1995. It was only released in North America and was also a commercial failure, selling very few units. Other consoles of this period include the Design Master Senshi Manjujuku and the R-Zone in 1995, the Paso Go in 1996, and the Game.com in 1997. They also did not do well. The Neo Geo Pocket followed them and was released in 1998 by SNK. It was part of the Neo Geo family of consoles. It had a few good titles and was very well made. Unfortunately, it couldn't compete with Nintendo's Game Boy and was considered another commercial failure, which led to its discontinuation only 1 year after its release. The same year saw the release of the Game Boy Color by Nintendo. Due to being backwards compatible with the original Game Boy, it had an even wider library of games at launch. Its sales were helped by the exploding popularity of the Pokémon franchise at the time and became one of the best-selling video game consoles, selling 118 million units in its lifetime. The next year saw another attempt of SNK to compete with the Game Boy with the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Overall, it was a slightly higher quality console compared to the Game Boy, featuring a very well-made joystick instead of a D-pad. Unfortunately, without Pokémon and the various popular titles available on the Game Boy Color, the Neo Geo struggled. This unfortunately caused SNK to leave the handheld market completely. At a similar time to the Neo Geo, Bandai's Wonder Swan was also released in 1999, and although it was well received at first and sold 3 million units, it also could not compete against the Game Boy Color. The next Nintendo handheld would be the Game Boy Advance, released in 2001. It was backwards compatible and received a couple of different design iterations such as the foldable Game Boy Advance SP and the Game Boy Micro, released in 2003 and 2005 respectively. The big difference in these revisions were the backlit screens, which was a first for handheld gaming. From this point onwards, handheld gamers could finally play games in the dark. In total, the GBA series sold 81 million units. Other handhelds of this generation included the Pokémon Mini, a console meant to play various Pokémon games and was released in 2001. Various consoles such as the iQuest, Casey the Kinderbot, the Pixter, the Leapster, the Nokia N-Gage, the Zodiac, and the Gamer King were released in the early 2000s. Some of them were innovative, such as the N-Gage, which was a combination of phone and game console, but ultimately none saw much success compared to the GBA. The Game Boy naming convention ended when Nintendo released the Nintendo DS in 2004. It was a foldable console which used two different screens, the bottom being a touch display. The DS would receive several different iterations to the model, such as the DS Lite in 2006, the DSi in 2008, and the DSi XL in 2009. These DS models combined have sold over 154 million units, making it the best-selling handheld of all time and placing it second under the PlayStation 2 in the list of best-selling console of all time. The DS's main competitor at the time was the PlayStation Portable released by Sony in the same year of 2004. The PSP was the most powerful handheld ever made during its release, making it quite popular, and was the only handheld console to use an optical disc format. The PSP did very well and sold over 80 million units worldwide. It received a couple of revisions, the PSP 2000, 3000, and the PSP Go. This generation between the late 2000s until 2010 also saw the release of the Gizmondo, the Digiblast, the V-Smile Pocketin, the MyLife, the DDJ, the Dingu A320, the Mobi Go, the Leapster Explorer, and the iXL. It also saw the release of the open source consoles GP2X in 2005, the GP2X Wiz in 2009, and finally the Pandora and the Canoe in 2010. Unfortunately, none of these consoles saw much financial success. The successor to the Nintendo DS was the Nintendo 3DS and was released in 2011. It was mostly the same aesthetically with dual screen capabilities, but was more powerful and had native 3D graphics. Many iterations were produced for the 3DS, including the 3DS XL, 2DS, New 3DS, New 3DS XL, and the New 2DS XL. While not as successful as its predecessor, the DS line, the 3DS sold a respectable total of 75 million units as of today. The 3DS's main competitor is the PlayStation Vita, which was released in the same year in 2011. The PS Vita was a very powerful console and included a touchscreen with motion sensors on the back, as well as updated graphics. For various reasons, mostly related to poor business decisions, the PS Vita along with its model iteration, the PS Vita Slim, only sold a combined 16 million units. At this point, it is unlikely Sony will release a successor to the Vita. During the same period, there was a new addition to the Neo Geo line of consoles with the Neo Geo X, this time produced by Tomo instead of SNK. It was released in 2012 and could play adaptations of Neo Geo games. Unfortunately, SNK terminated the license with Tomo and the console ceased production. Other consoles of the generation include GCW Zero and the Shield Portable in 2013, the Monon Color in 2014, as well as the Kickstarter-funded Arduboy in 2016. In this generation, there have also been a whole slew of handheld emulators, some being better than others. Unfortunately, most did not see much financial success. The most recent mainstream handheld console released to this date is the hybrid Nintendo Switch, released in 2017. It is the successor to the Wii U and can be played on the TV as a home console or undocked as a handheld. It dramatically exceeded Nintendo's expectations and has sold nearly 40 million units in just 2 years. The Switch Lite, a dedicated handheld-only version of the Switch, is to be released in late 2019. But there's a little more. Depending on who you ask, mobiles can also be considered handheld gaming. So this means the Android and iOS operating systems, along with every phone that can run them, should also deserve at least an honourable mention. I'm sure opinion on this will be very divisive, as the traditional handheld gaming experience is very different to that of mobile gaming. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. And with that comes the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed your time here, and until next time, Jinzo out.